All right, so we are sitting here and we are making up a whole other chain. We're going to start from scratch for the alcohol build. Uh, I made one attempt here for like a faster race type chain for on square hand file, and I feel like I went too far with it. So I'm starting over from scratch, but I'm going to start over with a C83, brand new C83, spun up a fresh loop of it for a 16-inch bar, just like the other chain was on. But I went through the whole process again and basically did up a whole new chain. The difference with C83 is the tooth. It's the width of the tooth, the width of the cutter actually. So if you're looking down the length side of the long side of the bar, C83, the width of the tooth is actually a little smaller. So I'm hoping that because it's just a little smaller, it won't drag as hard through the wood, you know what I mean? And be a little more forgiving in the cut and faster in the end, you know? But I'm also curious to see because I think I'm going a little deep on the rakers. So we're gonna, try a shallower raker. We're gonna aim for probably a 20,000th raker after this is done. But I'm gonna start out by sharpening the C83 on my round grinder. I'm gonna take half the tooth off. Then after I get half that tooth off, I'm gonna come in with my Dremel and just clean up the whole gullet area and make sure that's all nice and smooth and clean. And then I'm gonna come through, hand file it as a square, and then set the rakers, and we're gonna test it. So, should be an interesting video. Alrighty. So I'm here, I'm doing some square filing, and TW gave me a file. This is what is it, Valorby or whatever it is? Valorby? And this is my third here. Take a look. There's definitely a difference in size there, isn't there? Now, see how I'm using a regular vise? I got this piece of cardboard in there just because it helps to hold that chain really nice and tight. You know, the vise has some sloppiness in the jaws there. So, you really need your tooth to be tight. But, I don't know. I kind of like this file. It clogs up easy, though. It's like the shavings stick to the file pretty easy. Now, I started off, so this is actually a round ground chain that I've been working on, getting rid of all the extra gullet material and all that stuff, and now I'm coming in with the square file to put my edge on it. But you'll see how I kind of do this. I'm looking straight down on it, and this edge here, this little skinny edge here, this is like your straight up and down side part of the tooth, and I'm looking at that. Because the more you turn it this way, the more like self-feed you get. The more you turn it this way, the less you get. And there's like a steady balance there to where you want it. You know what I mean? Now, I am filing this up to be a little more aggressive. So, these angles you're looking at might be a little extreme. But I found one of the tricks that I have to do is to kind of do the back drag thing. You know what I mean? Drag it back. That enables me to keep all my strokes pretty much the same, you know what I mean, as I go. So watch how I do this here. Get my angles. But now I gotta kind of do that back drag thing a little bit just so my hands don't move while I'm doing this. I can keep all my strokes a little more even. I still haven't removed enough yet that I'm even hitting the top plate. So right now, the file is starting to clog up. So I gotta pull it away, wipe it off, and keep going here. I think I about got it. So since my vision isn't the best, I actually have to take the chain out to look at it. Looks like she needs a couple more strokes. I got the top plate, but I didn't get the side plate all the way. Now I find that this is, it's a skill. It takes practice, but I'll be honest, I think I can do this easier than round. Just by having the flat edges. Yeah, everything is a flat edge. It just seems to be easier. You know what I mean? One of the things you got to get used to though is that this, especially with this file, is that it does clog up on you, and you got to keep tending to it. But I will say this file here, it seems to give me a more of a like a polished finish than the furred. So in one way there, it definitely does seem to be benefiting, but it does clog up easier. I mean, here's the one I just did right there. Let's see if we can show you. So there's the one I just did. It looks a little cleaner than what I usually get from furred file. So it does clog up though. So this is what a tooth off the other side looks like. She really does have a nice polished look to it though, doesn't it? She's just a little more pain in the butt with the file. But you see the nice sharp corner going down through there? That's why you clamp the chain up. If you don't clamp it into a vise, like let me show you here. So in order to get a good file job, your tooth can't have any wiggle to it. It needs to be in there really tight, because if it starts wiggling while you're filing, you won't get that nice sharp cut, because the tooth is just wiggling around too much, and it'll be moving around on your file, or even grinding. If it's not good and tight, you won't get that nice cut to it. So square chain is especially way more than round chain. You really need it to clamp down nice and tight. Round chain's a lot easier if you clamp it down too, but square is one of those ones that it's almost vital. So I find that it's almost impossible to file it up while it's on the saw. I just can't get a good tight enough seat on it in order to get that nice cut into the corner. You know what I mean? I have to clamp it up, and I'm using a smaller vise. I find a smaller vise is much better because of how the jaws will, they're smaller, and I got to get them angles right like that. Where you see what I mean? You get into the vise. In fact, if you look at my vise, there's all sorts of file marks all over it for me doing this a bunch on the vise, and you can see where I had gotten into the vise, but we're getting close. We're almost done here. So whenever I'm doing this side of the tooth, this is kind of how I stand, like this, where when I'm doing the other side, I'm standing here like this. So I do got to move around the vise. That's where having it on the corner of the table like this really seemed to help. But you see how the tooth does not move while I'm doing this? That's kind of vital in order to be able to get that nice, clean corner. I'm pulling the file away every couple of strokes just to clean it off. She wants to kind of clog up on you a little bit if you go too long. Now this chain here started life as a brand new C83, fresh off the roll, and now I'm putting a hand file on it. In fact, it looks like I'm on the last tooth right now. This will be the last one that needs sharpened. But she started out as a brand new C83. I spun it up, 16-inch bar, put a square hand file on it, and I'm just doing some stuff here just to help it cut a little better. I found that the C83, the width of it is smaller than a lot of other chains. And I'm thinking that might be one of the reasons they perform so well. They're just not as wide, so it actually robs less power from the saw because it's not trying to remove as much material on the width. You know what I mean? And why take off wood that you don't need to in order to make your cut? You know what I mean? So that's why I decided to start over with the C83. But before I did anything, I took and put it in my round grinder, and I ground half the tooth away. Then after I was done doing that, I came in with my flex grinder here, and I took and kind of polished out or ground out all the extra little bit of anything that was in the gullet there, just to make sure I had a nice clean surface to start with. And now I'm coming through and sharpening it up. So we're gonna see how she does. We could actually compare this chain to a brand new C83 if we want to, and kind of see what the difference is between this, my hand file and a C83. Be kind of curious to see that result. So we might actually end up doing that. I just don't need another 16-inch chain for this saw. Well, I guess it wouldn't hurt. That way I could save this one for races and stuff, and then I can just run a C83 for testing sessions. So maybe we will go ahead and do that. Now it might look like I'm taking a lot of strokes, but I'm hardly putting any pressure on it at all. I'm just letting the file do all the work. So I might be taking a lot of strokes, but it's not like I'm taking a lot of material with each stroke. Alrighty, I say we're golden, we're sharp. Alright, so now we're sitting here, we're gonna start working on the rakers, because this was a brand spanking new C83 that I ground half the tooth off. Then I put my square hand file on. Now we're gonna need a raker setting of some sort. Let's see here. See if we can get a ballpark idea of what we might be at. And I mean, can you see that rock? That's how high the raker is. What's this set to? I forget what this is set to. So I use my dial indicator, the depth gauge here, and transfer my depth gauge that way. Figure out what my height is at. I actually want to set it closer to 20, I think. So I'm gonna loosen this guy up. All right, has this guy set to 21 thousandths. So that's close enough for me. Let's go with that. And she is high. She's very high. Can you see the rock? Because basically I put this guy on the raker and I'm rocking it between the teeth here. Look at all that rock. So we need to take some off the raker until that rock goes away. Now with this depth gauge setup that I'm doing here, it doesn't work by going to the other side so easy. You gotta flip it around and put it on this side. You know what I mean? So what I do is I'll actually do this side of the chain, and then I'll flip the saw around the other way and do the other side. I find it easier to go that way. But let's take some off here. I'm gonna put my finger here just to keep it from hitting the tooth, and then we'll take 2 swipes. See where we're at. Not even close. Still got more to go. Very close. Getting close now. And that's going to be the process until the whole chain's done. I'll do this side and then I'll flip it over and do the other side. I could do it all from this side. It's just when you're filing, I don't know, the file, when you get to this side of it, you get all that stuff going on. I don't like that. If I flip it around the other way, that all goes away. So that's how I do it. I do it, part from one side and the other part from the other side. All right, so now that I've done a few, I'm starting to figure it out. It seems to be about 8 swipes. They're easy swipes. They're not like super heavy pressure or nothing, but it seems to be 8 swipes. Puts me right on the money. So that's what we're doing. Now again, I have sharpened half a tooth away, so I'm not surprised. I want to see how she does this before I go any deeper on the raker, Just kind of curious. This process of setting up your rakers might seem a little tedious, but it's seriously, it's not as bad as you might think. Especially, we're doing this because we enjoy it. You know what I mean? If we're going to be precise on our saws, we might as well be precise with our chains. All right, as you can see, we are on this side now. Definitely, when doing chain like this, everything by hand and all these tweaks, you can definitely see why folks, especially in like the racing world and stuff, will run shorter bars. It takes time, and the shorter the bar, the less time you got to worry about. And why have a whole bunch of bar there that you're not going to need? You know what I mean? I can definitely see the advantage. So there's what they come out looking like. I don't think I'm going to do anything more, at least not right now. I mean, there's other tweaks I can do, but this is where I'm going to start with. That's just a C83 turned into the square hand file, and cleaned up the gullet area really well, all that sorts of stuff. It's got the raker set. I didn't leave behind a bunch of extra crud on there, but that's the way we're going to run her. She's good to go. We're going to make some test cuts here. Now this is the chain we did on the last video. Basically the same modifications. It's just the cutter itself is, the width of it here. The width of it is wider. So hopefully this one drags on that, drags the torque out of the saw or whatever. Hopefully this one pulls less hard, I should say. Now we're on a different piece of wood, so I'll have to make a couple of cuts with this chain, a couple of cuts with this chain, so we can compare and see if I made any improvements between those two chains. You know what I mean? Okay, so there she is. All we got left to do now is test each chain and see which one is better. You know what I mean? We'll do another video too. I think we're going to go ahead and compare C83 to this chain here, and just out of the box form of CD83 compared to this, and see if there's a drastic difference at all, because I'm still kind of new at this square thing, and comparing, you got to compare it in order to know just how good you're getting. You know what I mean? So I think we'll do one of those. But what do you say we start getting ready here and start getting ready to make some test cuts? Alrighty. I do want to add, she is actually running better today than last time. Probably because I'm shoving more fuel to it. It seems like every time I go and add more and more fuel, she runs better. So I think I'm pretty much out of adjustment now in the carb. I really can't get any more fuel to it, which tells me that adding nitro may not be a good idea, because you got to be able to get to a point where your tune is a little on the fat side before you really want to start throwing nitro at it. And I'm not showing any signs of this thing trying to run fat, and my carburetor's adjusted out pretty much as far as it'll go. So nitro may not be a good option here. We might be stuck just as is. But you know, the last video we were kind of topped out at like 13 grand on around 10 inches of wood. Now we're eating almost that whole bar, so we're probably 15, 16 inches now, and we're at 13 grand. So we really didn't lose any RPM going from 10 to 15. So I'd say we're running better. In fact, if we went smaller, we'd probably be tickling closer to 14 grand, I bet you, on like an 8-inch piece of wood. So I mean, we did that test video and it was what, 13.4 to 13.6, sometimes hitting 13.8 on 8 inches of wood or 9 inches of wood. And then whenever we went to 10 inches of wood, she dropped down to 13. So I'm at 13 with closer to 15 inches of wood now. So where will she go whenever we go down to 8 inches of wood? She should rev out a lot more, you know, and I'm willing to bet we're going to be tickling close to 14. But now that last cuts there, you saw they were pretty much a self feed, but the chain is doing all the work. I have to input nothing with that chain. It is so nice and smooth and perfect. There is zero input from myself to make this saw cut with that other chain. Let's see how it is with this one, because last time I felt like I had to push it through the cut a little more on this one than I did that other one. So let's see how this one goes. More smoke coming out the muffler, but yeah, the first our first chain there, which is actually this is the first chain we did up. So that, yeah, let's start over here. So this is the first chain we did up. This one did not feel as good as the other one, the second chain we did up. So the first test cuts you saw were actually the second chain I made. But yeah, it felt better than this one. RPM on both of them is about the same, but this one had chatter in it. The difference with this one is a deeper raker. She's closer to 25 thousandths, where the other one is like 20, 21. So I think the other one's going to end up coming out faster, to be honest, even with a shallower raker. It was smoother, everything, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go ahead and close out this video with this. I mean, I haven't seen the side-by-side yet. It's just my personal opinion is I think my second attempt is going to end up being faster. At least it felt faster, I'll say that much. It was smoother. I mean, all around, it felt better. Now, I am basing this on an assumption of how it felt in the wood, so I could be totally wrong. You know what I mean? It'll end up changing our plans. But I think the next video, we're going to compare whichever chain here turned out to be faster. We're going to compare it to an out-of-the-box C83. And we'll see if I'm wasting my time with this square. Because if a C83 ends up being faster than this, then you know it's just a waste of time, and just throw C83 on it. You know what I mean? It's to me that seems like the logical excuse or explanation. You know what I mean? So that's what we'll be doing here next. Will it be faster though? I don't know. We're gonna find out. uh, it's the only way to truly know. So till the next video, we'll see you later.